This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the US. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Welcome to Farm Here Daily, a field-forward podcast. I'm David Geiger, your host. I've been on Iowa TV and radio for the last decade, and I am very excited to start up this new podcast, Farm Here Daily. Today on the program, we'll take a look at some of the recently revived reports from the U.S. Department of Agriculture with Greg Thessen of the National Agricultural Statistics Service. Then we'll travel to southern Iowa to check out the progress on the farm with Iowa State University Extension agronomist Logan McCrea. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at Field Forward Pod. We would love to have you join our community, keeping folks in Iowa informed about what is affecting our farmers. And joining us on Farm Here Daily, we have Greg Thessen. He's the director of the Upper Midwest Regional Office of the National Agricultural Statistics Service. You may know them as the folks that give us that great survey data all the time, especially during the growing season. Let us know what's going on the farm. And Greg, it is good to be talking to you again because we just recently, not only do we get those crop progress reports that we always love to see, but we had some acreage and stocks reports that was a little delayed because it was reinstated.
Yeah, that's right, David. NASS recently, or earlier in May, released the 2024 corn and soybean county level data, providing acreage yield and production information all the way down to the county level. If you remember back in April of 24, NASS had put out an Ag Statistics Board notice saying that we were canceling those due to our given appropriated budget levels. And about a year later, as we moved into a different fiscal year, we were able to save some funds from some other projects and reduce the data collection cost for the data that flows into these estimates and bring those back. So there was another Ag Statistics Board notice on March 19th of this year saying we were bringing them back, and we did that. We published those on May 6th, like I said. Also bringing back, included in that was some livestock county estimates. And so most all of those have been released except for, I think, actually the cotton not cotton, rice and peanut estimates are actually being released on May 23rd.
Was there any interesting tidbits about this early May release of some of last year's numbers that you thought might be interesting to just note, especially since it was delayed and we didn't get it right as that information was calculated?
Yeah, one thing I'd mention about this is it was released a little bit later. Normally, NASS would provide these county level data sets around the end of February due to everything that was going on with the continuing resolution and the funding and all that sort of thing. We weren't able to get them out until May, so they were released a little bit later. Another thing, as I mentioned before, we didn't do quite as much follow-up. We do a fairly large survey sample on this to get enough reports to be able to publish at the county level. We like to have at least 30 reports in each county to publish. We were only able to get that many reports in 73 counties for corn and 68 counties for soybeans. So we don't have data for all 99 counties, but we do have the data for 73 counties for corn and 68 counties for soybeans, like I mentioned. So for out of those 73 counties, if you look across the yield data, that's what a lot of folks like to focus on is comparing their yield for their farm to the county average. And so Carroll County ended up with the highest yield at 240.9 bushels per acre. That compares with the state average yield of 211 bushels per acre for the 2024 crop. So there are, counties that end up above and below that state average, and Carroll County ended up being the highest. The other thing I'd point out, 6 of the 7 other top yielding counties all fell in District 60, which is East Central Iowa. So it looked like East Central Iowa had a pretty good year last year. On the other side of that coin, if you look at the counties that had the lowest corn yields, normally we would see those in the bottom couple tiers of counties close to the Missouri border. This year was a little different, or last year, I should say, 2024 was a little different. Dickinson County, which is located in northwest Iowa, saw the lowest average yield at 160.8 bushels per acre. And then rounding out the top 5 lowest counties were Decatur County, which is down by the Missouri border, but Clay, Palo Alto, and Winnebago counties also were in the 5 lowest yielding counties. So that was interesting points on corn. If you looked at the soybean yields, the state average for 2024 came in at 60 bushels per acre. For the top yielding county there, out of the 68 we published, Scott County, again over in East Central Iowa, had the highest yield at 70.1. And 7 other counties had an average yield above 65 bushels per acre, with Carroll County posting the second highest yield, and then the remaining 6 highest yielding counties, again, located over in East Central and Southeast Iowa, sort of over towards the Mississippi River, all having very good years last year. And then looking at the lowest counties, again, it was a rough year for Dickinson County because they posted the lowest soybean yield also at 46.1 bushels per acre, with Clay, Decatur, Palo Alto, and Winnebago, again, rounding out the lowest yielding counties, all below 54 bushels per acre.
Huh. That might be worth following up and seeing what the folks on the ground over there were seeing. Might talk to an agronomist at some point. Thanks for that information. So this was one of those initially canceled reports, then brought back. Another one of the canceled reports and brought back is a cattle report that's on the way this summer. Is that correct?
That's right. The July cattle report has been part of our normal reports and has gone away in some years where we have fewer funds to do our work. Since we are a federal statistical agency of the USDA, we are required to live within the funds we're appropriated. And for some reason, July cattle seems to always be the report that ends up on the chopping block. Even though we don't like to eliminate any reports, we do that from time to time based on our funding levels. But we are committed to bringing that back as well this year. We're actually ramping up to start that data collection here at the end of June. And that report provides cattle numbers by class of cattle. At the U.S. level, there are no state level breakdowns, but it will provide the U.S. total for each class of cattle.
Greg, I know there's a bunch of other reports that are regularly scheduled and are set to come out as per normal. What are some of those that are on the way?
Yeah, we're right now this week, we're turning our attention to collecting the information about farmers' actual acreage for this year, for the 2025 crop year, along with the grain stored for the acreage and grain stocks reports that'll come out at the end of June. We're going to have we're going to be contacting about 71,000 producers nationwide, with 2,400 of those right here in Iowa. And so they will be receiving a form to complete. Probably if they haven't received it already here in the next few days, they can respond by mail or online. And then for those that don't report in that manner, we'll follow up with some email reminders and then some phone calls and maybe even a personal interview for those that don't respond to that. Again, the data from those respondents or farmers will be in the June 30th acreage and grain stocks reports. But we also, at this time of year, are doing our June quarterly hog and pig survey. We have an off-farm grain stock survey that provides the amount of grain stored in off-farm facilities. And then we're also this year doing a land value and technology use survey to help us do our land value estimates that we do at the state level each year. The last thing I'd mention, we're also finishing up the cash rent survey that folks will want to watch out for. That survey provides the county level, the cash rents for cropland and pasture land at the county level, that report will be coming out on our Quick Stats database on August 22nd. So that's always a highly anticipated report to see what the cash rental rates are for this year.
Greg, I asked this question, and I'll say in all honesty, I'm a little biased in this because as a farm broadcaster, I've used extensively the NASS reports that are released, the reports that you guys put out on a weekly basis during the crop year, and also quarterly and monthly basis that you have many, many reports. So I'd say this with a little bit of bias because I greatly benefit from them and enjoy looking through them personally. But why do you think it's important that we have more farmers continue to return these surveys, to fill them out as best they can and get them back to you guys?
Well, as I mentioned, on the county level numbers, we were only able to publish 73 corn counties for corn and 68 counties for soybeans. That's directly related to not having enough data at county level for those counties we didn't publish. And so that data isn't available not only to you as a farm broadcaster, but to the whole agricultural community. And it doesn't allow, good administering of government disaster programs or crop insurance programs, both of which use that information. But not only that, I've had people call me for those specific data that use it for benchmarking their own yields or for even settling a flexible cash lease that they have. So to me, there's really not a big downside to reporting to NASS for a farmer. I know they're concerned about the confidentiality. They don't want to share their individual farm level data, but anything they report to NASS is completely confidential. We cannot share it with anyone. All we do is use it to create these reports that ultimately provide the information that's needed by everyone involved in agriculture, including themselves, and in their case, helping to level the playing field when it comes to developing their marketing plan for the year, or like I said, participating in government programs, ensuring that those are available for them when they need them. And I could go on and on with other reasons, but that's what I would say mainly is that it's confidential. It's used by the industry. It can be used by them personally. So there really isn't a lot of downside to reporting on these surveys.
Well, you convinced me. I was already convinced, but you convinced me again. I appreciate you talking about the surveys, and I hope folks continue to fill them out. Would love to see more county data. I always like looking through that. Greg Thessen, the director of the Upper Midwest Regional Office of the National Agricultural Statistics Service, which is part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Greg, thank you so much for talking to us here on Farm Here Daily.
I appreciate it, David. Glad to be with you today.
This is Farm Here Daily. We'll have more conversations on the way, but let's take a look at what's going on in the marketplace for the Wednesday close. Corn in July down 8.5 cents at $4.51. September fell 4 cents, $4.29 3/4. Soybeans in July 14 cents weaker at $10.48.5, with August down 12 3/4 cents at $10.45 1/4. Soybean meal in July $2.60 a ton, in the red at $293.70. Wheat in July a penny and 3/4 cents higher at $5.30 1/4, with September rising a penny and a quarter at $5.45 1/2. In the livestock market close for Wednesday, some red on the board there as well in cattle. June live cattle down $1.20, a hundredweight at $213.92. August fell $1.12 at $208.17. Feeder cattle in August $2.52, a hundredweight lower at $295.62, with September down $2.77 at $294.47. In lean hogs, June $1.17, a hundredweight more at $100.27, with July rising $1.15 at $103.30 a hundredweight. That is the Wednesday market close. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining us on Farm Here Daily, we have Logan McCrea, Iowa State University Extension agronomist for South Central Iowa. Logan, it's good to have you back on the program. You have a nice holiday weekend, and did that then turn into pretty good area for what you're looking at now?
Absolutely. I had a great holiday weekend. A lot of what I had over this holiday weekend is kind of what the southern portion of Iowa has been dealing with the past week or two since I last talked to with you. We've been having a lot more wetter conditions and a lot cooler conditions than the 80 degrees and hot and dry weather that we had for a little bit there. But the moisture was definitely well appreciated, and I think a lot of people are thankful we got it.
Yeah, because I think that last crop progress report came out on Tuesday, delayed a little bit because of that holiday weekend. It showed 95% planting completion on corn statewide and 92% for soybeans, somewhere in that realm. I imagine it's much higher in the south.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are pretty well wrapped up for the most part on both corn and soybeans, and really, I would say 3/4 on both corn and soybeans have emerged, 75% range, and really everything that was planted and has come up looks pretty good. There might have been some crusting issues that some fought with that Easter rain with certain planting dates, but other than that, we really haven't had any big issues so far with the early planted stuff. So we've kind of cruised along to the end of the finish line now for most of the planting. Other than that, the only things that are really maybe left is some delayed planting situations with guys chopping rye off or chopping triticale off or anything like that. So we're pretty well wrapped up on that. And then even on the alfalfa, we're about 50% first cutting alfalfa is done, I would say. It's probably 50-50 split. Some people kind of used that good weather window that we had a couple weeks ago and got a lot of their alfalfa cut. And then the rest, I think, are going to be getting it done here in the next week or so once we get past this couple rainy days and we get back to some more warmer days.
Now, I've spoken with you extension folks for a while, and when this emergence happens and you said things are looking pretty good, that doesn't mean y'all are just resting on your laurels, hands behind head. You're kind of getting phone calls still. What are those phone calls about from the farmers out there right now?
Absolutely. The phone calls never stop happening, but a lot of what the phone calls I've been getting right now have been kind of around pasture weeds. Pastures have had the past couple summers have had some bit of drier weather, and that can kind of lead to some reduced stand, kind of, if you want to call it that, and give an opportunity for a lot of those weeds to come up. So a lot of my phone calls have been around pasture weeds lately. Another pretty pressing topic that I've had is the water hemp is kind of out and about now, and it seems that a lot of the corn trees that went on during that really dry and hot stretch, the residual in there didn't get the rainfall in time to activate it. So a lot of people are having to get back out and try and get a bit of a rescue mission on some of their water hemp that's coming out in their cornfields. So a lot of my phone calls lately have been pretty weed heavy related. Insect pressure has been pretty low, thankfully. Last year we fought alfalfa weevil really bad, but this year, cross my fingers, knocking on wood, it hasn't been too bad yet. So that is a lot of what my phone calls have been lately.
I wanted to follow up on that water hemp issue going on. It's just an issue, and I heard this from across the state where just it was bad timing on the part of how weather interacted with what farmers were doing. and so some of those residuals just aren't working as well. Is there also potentially, because I know this is a growing problem that a lot of farmers are facing, any possibility there's just some resistance issues as well going on with that water hemp?
There definitely could be. I think it could be a combination of issues. It's hard to blame it just on that with the weather that
Right.
we had. We had 10 to 14 days there where the weather was beautiful. I mean, it was great planting conditions. We didn't get the moisture to have the residuals activate. But even during that weather, the wind wasn't blowing. So it's hard to tell people not to want to do anything. So I think we could definitely still be fighting some resistance issues, especially with water hemp and how it has continued to act in the past. It's just hard to necessarily blame it all on that right now, I think.
It's a lot more nuanced. It could be a combination of factors. It's not one or the other.
Yeah, it's a lot of it depends and situation by situation basis, I would say, more than anything right now.
The alfalfa weevil you were mentioning as well, crossing fingers that those don't pop up. They were. Do you recall the situation this time last year? If you could tell that it was much, much worse at this point, so we could kind of know we're more or less doing pretty good?
hmm So last year, in general, last year and then in general, in the spring when people are doing their first cutting alfalfa, alfalfa weevil can be a bit of an issue for anybody really. But the biggest thing or the biggest tool that farmers have in their tool belts for kind of fighting it is being able to get their first cutting done. So we think about last year where we had rain on and off for 4 or 5 weeks there and really nothing was going on. It was kind of stalled. We weren't able to get in the fields at all. When that alfalfa weevil was out there, if it was just dry enough for people to get their first cutting done, that would have been their easiest way to control that alfalfa weevil. But this year, like I said, we have about 50-50 right now done on the alfalfa weevil. All of those farmers that were able to get their first cutting done don't necessarily have to worry about as bad. And then now, even looking ahead at the next 7 to 10 day forecast, we're going to get another pretty good 5 or 6 day stretch of warm, dry, windy weather where it's going to be great mowing conditions for that first cutting alfalfa. So I think the conditions this year have lined up a lot better than in years past for the alfalfa weevil, just for the sake of people being able to mechanically cut that alfalfa in order to control the alfalfa weevil.
What do you recommend most for the farmers who are out scouting to be watching just over the next week or two?
In general, I would say just trying to make note of what is normal and what is not normal, or what they think is normal, what they think isn't normal, because it's hard to say that there's going to be the same issue every year that reoccurring. In general, that can happen, but that's always not a guarantee, especially in agriculture. There's so many different insect pressures that can come in, so many weed pressure that can come in, herbicide drift, anything like that. In general, I would say the best piece of advice that I can give is try and discern what is normal for them and what they see more often than not, and then what is not normal. And then if they find something that's not normal, reach out to somebody that you trust, whether that's an agronomist at a co-op, whether that's one of us as an extension agronomist, or anybody that you think you can trust and is generally is reliable for you, asking them what they're seeing and what they think is normal and what isn't normal.
Logan McCrea, Iowa State University Extension agronomist for South Central Iowa. Thank you so much for joining us. And any final notes to make as we head out and head into the new month?
I don't think I have anything. I hope everybody had a great holiday weekend and is ready to get back to work. We got a good short week to go with it, so the best way to get back into it is ease into it, I guess.
Absolutely. This is Farm Your Daily, a field forward podcast. Thank you for listening. Again, in order to continue to produce this type of local Iowa content, we would love to have you join our community. So please follow the podcast, shoot it over to your friends, and check out our social media channels at Field Forward Pod. Additionally, you can find me on social media at Geiger Reports, as well as WHO TV Channel 13 every weekday in their morning and noon hour programs. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody.